Hey everyone, good afternoon. What did I do? There we go. My name is Kesem Frank. I'm a co-founder of a project called Aion. Like Karen said, one of the major focal points of that project is the topic of interoperability between different blockchains. It's a topic that me personally am very passionate and excited about, and hopefully, within the next 4.5 minutes, I'm able to kind of make you a bit passionate about this topic as well. I also run a company called Mavennet. Mavennet essentially has two purposes. It has the purpose of making blockchain as an architecture successful in the context of enterprise, and it has the purpose of making enterprise successful when engaging on blockchain. Um, let's start with something very rudimentary that I don't feel gets enough kind of emphasis. Blockchain is not about money. Blockchain is not about cryptocurrency. Blockchain is not about ICOs. Blockchains are about trust. And I feel this is a fact that gets a bit too trivialized today. We kind of forget why we started this route of what we're doing. Blockchain is a gigantic breakthrough. It is the only time in history that we were able, as human beings, to essentially trust data that we do not own. That is a gigantic innovation. That innovation by itself is now about 10 years old. Obviously, Bitcoin hit the world about 10 years ago. The Ethereum folks, I think I've seen some of the team members here today. They came up with the very first working at scale implementation of something called smart contracts. And then we could not just trust individual data points, we could actually trust logic we did not code, which is by itself phenomenal. When you take these two things together, really big things are now possible that weren't possible before. And I would like to put that in a perspective, if you will, around where we're at in the evolution. Um, the internet started with with really simple applications. Simple is not to say that they weren't powerful. The internet was the very first time that we had a very streamlined rail, a very efficient way to essentially communicate across the globe. So every one person in the world could communicate with any other person in the world in a way that wasn't possible before. That was kind of the 90s. That is kind of the big so what of the first decade of the internet. What followed is pretty much the age that we all live in today. We all live in the age of platforms, and platforms are awesome because they don't just allow any one person to talk to any other person. They allow one person to literally talk to the entire world. But that comes with a caveat. For me to use Facebook to talk to the entire world, for me to use Amazon to sell to the entire world, I'm essentially at the mercy of those platforms. Think about it for a second. We entrust, we put so much power in the hands of central entities that essentially at will, at discretion, can decide that they're no longer comfortable with what we're doing for whatever reason. They could do that, and they do that sometimes. Let's put a pin in it for a second. Blockchain started very similar to how the internet started. Bitcoin was a breakthrough way for any one person in the world to transact with any other person in the world in a way that was decentralized, trustless, no intermediaries, a huge innovation. But when you kind of reflect on how the internet evolved, and you think of where we're at today with where blockchain is, you kind of come to an inevitable conclusion. You come to a conclusion that the future doesn't look like two parallel tracks of architecture. The future is not a blockchain network and the internet running alongside. The future is actually a transformation. The future is companies like my own trying to actually reshape the way that the internet is built in a much more decentralized way. And with the remainder of my time, I want to make the point of why that's important. And I think everyone in this room should be asking themselves, Why is blockchain important? I'll give you 3 reasons. There are more. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are kind of the reasons that get me up out of bed in the morning and why I work so hard on this. Blockchain, decentralized network. I guess I ran out of time, but thank you guys.